wanted to share just my reflections on authenticity. Shoen gave a talk on authenticity last week, and I listened to that. And then several of you actually brought up the talk with me and Dokusan and had your perspectives on it. It motivated me to go and listen to Shoen's talk and then to have my own reflections on it. And I think it's a very relevant topic for us with Zen practice. By the way, Shoen, I think we should call your talk the Periwinkle Giraffe. For
I
those of
like
you,
that. I like that better.
yeah, yeah. It's authenticity.
Subtitled "Coloring Within the Lines."
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if I see a video, on YouTube titled "Authenticity," I'm inclined to not watch it. I think it sounds too heavy for me. But I'm going to watch a video called "The Periwinkle Giraffe." So for those of you who didn't see that, it had to do with the spirit of a child who just has the box of crayons and just try to draw a giraffe and pull the periwinkle crayon out. And that spirit of just spontaneous creativity, touches on at least Shoen's view of authenticity. So, who am I is the root koan in our Zen practice. So this question of authenticity goes right to the heart of Zen practice. Who am I, really? Who am I? Within a couple of years of Shishin Roshi moving here from San Diego in 1996, it was maybe 2 years later, he led a retreat at Naropa for the undergraduates. He hadn't started teaching the class there, so it was not in the context of his class. It was just an offering that they had solicited him to lead. And it was a one-day retreat, similar to the one that we did on Saturday, actually. But we had formal oryoki, as we used to do in those days. So it was very formal. And we did it on the grounds at Naropa, and there were about 25 students and graduate students, undergraduates and graduate students who did this session. And it was, I was one of the attendants. There was another student who was helping with this retreat. And some of the feedback that came afterwards were that people found it to be really strict and formal. And some people said, well, it's like you just want us to be robots because of the silence and the formality of the practice. And they said, we want to express ourselves. It's important that we express ourselves, right? And Shishin Roshi said, well, what self are you expressing? That's the core question, right? What self are you expressing? There's a story of, we get confused about this. Yeah, we get confused about this. There's several accounts of Zen masters who express themselves authentically, and then they get questioned on it. I always want to share those. You might have heard these stories. There's one where a woman who was quite awakened, powerfully awakened, was in a village, and there was an acquaintance who passed away. I don't have the details. I tried to look up the details of this story. I couldn't find it online. An acquaintance passed away, and she just grieved with sobs, just bawling, in grief and sorrow. And all the villagers who, she had been recognized as an awakened being, and then all the villagers who, perhaps resented and certainly didn't understand that, said, well, look at you being so attached to this person who's passed away. How are you enlightened? And she said, this is the enlightened mind. This is enlightenment. Grieving like this. So I know none of us here would bypass that much, right? I hope. But let's make sure we don't. That direct immediacy of a strong feeling. Right? That's the authentic expression that we're looking for. There's another story of the master who was, I'm not sure how it goes, but I think it was, was asked, how he would, no, that's not what happened. What happened was he was in the jungle and a tiger came up to him. And he went, ah! And he was terrified, and he jumped. And then the tiger went away, and then somebody heard about this and said, oh, you're not supposed to be afraid of the tiger. Ah! That's authentic true self. I think there's another story where the guy just sits there with the tiger, and the tiger comes up and licks his face, and he sort of tames the tiger. So yeah, people want to hear that one, right? That's the real Zen master. That's true self. Yeah, I can be unafraid and even tame the wild beast. No, how about Ganto, the Zen master Ganto, was killed by bandits on the road. And his shout was heard for miles. His shout of fear and pain when he was attacked, miles away, his shout. That's how all pervading his authenticity was. So Shoen had an example, from Shishin Roshi in his talk where they were working on the roof of the barn, and Shishin hit his finger with the hammer and just said, "Damn it!" That was true self, expressing itself. Yeah, so as I see it, the important thing here is to be unobstructed. I mean, that's what gets in the way. Well, what gets in the way? Something gets in the way of our expression. We don't have to, ask the question, who am I? And then we have a definition of ourself, and then we act in accord with that definition. All that's just extra. Right? It's not a process of defining ourselves. It's a process of removing obstacles that are getting in the way of the true energetic expression of who we are. And that starts off as we experience ourselves more and more in the moment, what is arising in the moment, so we always maintain authenticity in our sensory experience in the moment. And then more and more that broadens to be, well, who am I in the world? Who am I in this life? What is my purpose here? It doesn't come through some definition that you impose on yourself. It comes upon you looking inside yourself and seeing what is meaningful to you, what wants to express, what wants to function from within. So we want to remove these obstructions of our true self. Yeah, like I said, this question of authenticity is this question of who am I, which is koan. It's all koans, actually. All koans are about the authenticity of yourself. Who am I? And this is the work of koans when you work with koans with me, is you come in and see, I'm not looking for the right answer. We think that that's the case. I'm very tuned into your obstructions. Very tuned in. I can see what's getting in the way, or if anything is getting in the way of your clear expression. So, as those of you who work on koans with me know, if you hesitate, you're lost. Sometimes, most times. If you've got that 1 second in your presentation that hesitates, I see it, I feel it, I'm there to resonate with and mirror back to you what might be getting in the way of your own expression. And then when I pass you on the koan, I'm just validating that, you've cleared that away, and you've just, your expression is arising clearly with respect to this question. All koans are questions like this. What's going on here? What's getting in the way of, me being authentic? And we put ourselves in the position of the characters in the koan. And so we act out, we energetically embody the spirit of the people in the koan. And then we can, feel into what's getting in the way. And when we can really become one with typically the expression of the master in the koan, or the awakened person, as it's presented in the dialogue, and now then we've penetrated the koan, we say, because that obstruction has dropped away. Master Hakuin has this poem, it's a short poem, relatively short, called The Song of Zazen, beautiful Dharma teaching in this celebration of our practice. And he has these lines in the Song of Zazen: and if we turn inward and prove our true nature, that true self is no self, our own self is no self, we go beyond ego and past clever words. This is authenticity, true self. Our Zen understanding is that true self is no self. No fixed self. No fixed self. And it's better to think of the self not as a thing, but as a process, right? A verb. Self is a verb, not a noun. I kind of like that. And, Shoen brought this up in his talk, that authenticity is something we do, not something we are. I think these are helpful ways to look at ourselves. Because when we really investigate ourselves, we see that that's actually what's happening. Is there something happening? No self means nothing fixed. But the ego wants to be fixed. The ego fixes itself. We call it self-grasping ignorance. Something within us, a subjectivity, a center of subjectivity that grasps upon our qualities, the pattern of our selving as a fixed thing. We have to go beyond ego and past clever words. Yeah, we have to step outside of, find a way to get beyond this self-grasping ignorance, this kind of vortex dynamic that we have within us that creates a self-centered experience out of everything. This refers everything to the self. Clever words are the tool of the self to maintain this image. Clever words know they're clever, don't they? Like, oh, that was good. As soon as you put a good one out there, and it's like, oh, that was a good one. And then the little pride arises. Like, oh, I'm somebody. That's a giveaway in Dokusan as well. Clever words. So how do we reveal it? How do we reveal it? In the Song of Zazen, Master Hakuin says, the gateway to freedom is Zazen Samadhi. This one true Samadhi extinguishes evils. It purifies karma, dissolving obstructions. Samadhi was our theme for our Zazenkai 2 days ago. The energy of concentration. This true Samadhi dissolves obstructions and keeps us confused. It does even more than that, it purifies karma. But we'll talk about that another day. So can you tell when you're authentic? This would be nice for discussion, after we sit. How do you tell? Can you tell? How can you tell? I believe you can very much. You have to investigate yourself. You have to investigate yourself, and sometimes it's post facto. After you've said something, you can reflect on, where did that come from? What was motivating me there? And sometimes you can tell from the response you get, and then your reaction to the response you get. You say something, you don't get the response you want. Are you upset? Okay, what's that? Now, if you're really attached or thrown off by not getting the response you wanted, then did you say it from with an agenda? Okay. Sometimes you don't know those ulterior motives until you do that self-reflection, until you reflect on your reaction to the response and then your motivation for what you said. These kind of layered reflections. And if you're honest with yourself, you can feel, you can tap into what was going on there. Yeah, this is the self-study that is Zen. You're like, oh yeah, I really wanted some approval in those words, or you can, maybe in a business context, you could say, oh, I'm really, I'm selling something here. I'm selling myself. Yeah, that's, may not be so authentic. And the true self doesn't have those agendas. Yeah, so the important thing here from a practice standpoint, I believe, is to practice with sincerity. To be sincere in your practice and to be sincere in your life. So a wonderful story about Master Tozan that I came upon with respect to sincerity I wanted to share. So this goes back to his childhood. And as a child, while he was reading the Heart Sutra with his tutor, he came to the line, there is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. Which we all know. And as a child, he heard this and he immediately felt his face with his hand. And then he said to his tutor, I have eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and so on. Why does the sutra say they don't exist? And the tutor was taken by surprise and actually recognized Tozan's uniqueness, and he said, I'm not capable of being your teacher. He was so sincere in his question, and his tutor recognized the power of that sincerity. So what did that sincerity look like, right? It was, what? Really? What? What does that mean? What does that mean? It's the sincerity of the question, not the sincerity of, oh, I think that was really great, and I mean it. Okay? Now, it could be that. It could be that, but the sincerity of the investigation, of the questioning, is what's the real important thing here, right? It's the authenticity of the questioning. Who am I? I don't know. Who am I? I don't know. I don't know. Who am I? I don't know. The endlessness and continuousness of that question. True self is no self. But I love this example of the sincerity of that. The child is so sincere, and you can even see they're upset. He's upset. What? What do you mean? What does that mean? That's the spirit to bring to our practice. It's a self-intimacy. Sincerity, self-intimacy. That's what I call it. Suzuki Roshi spoke about this. He says, what is sincere practice? When you're not so sincere, it's difficult to know. But when you are sincere, you can't accept what is superficial. Only when you become very sincere will you know what it is. He says it's like appreciating good art. What's important is not the teaching, but the character or effort of the student. Even to seek for enlightenment means your mind isn't big enough. You're not sincere enough because you have some purpose in your study. Yeah, so there's that agenda coming in again, right? If you have that agenda in your practice, there's something there that's getting in the way of a real authenticity. When you're sincere, you can't accept what is superficial. I really like that. Okay, so that's why that, that example that popped up for me, it's like, oh yeah, that was really good. If that's a real superficial, as it can be, kind of words that you're saying, that's not sincere. Well, you can say, oh yeah, but it was, I meant it. It's like, yeah, but it's superficial. It's not deep. This person really might want to know. Probably does want to know. Right, Dave? I mean, when you perform, you really want to hear what somebody thought about it, right? You don't want a superficial. If it's superficial, they weren't even listening to you, right? Right? That's what we all want. We get a superficial response. It's like, yeah, you're not even paying attention to me. Sincerity is to really pay attention to it, really investigate, for yourself what it means to you, what it means to you. Allow yourself to be moved by the world. And then express that. Express how the world is moving you. Yeah, that I think is hopefully helpful about authenticity. Express that.